We both grew up in poor areas. English Defense League, the author of the powerful book Enemy of the State, which will keep you up at nights in more ways than one, and a contributor for Ezra Levant's The Rebel Media. You can find him at least on The Rebel Media, therebel.media/Tommy_Robinson. You can follow his great Twitter feed at twitter.com/T Robinson New Era and facebook.com/The Tommy Robinson. Tommy, thank you so much for taking the time today.
No, thanks for having me on.
So, Tommy and I share not wildly disparate backgrounds. For those who don't know, we both grew up in poor areas of England. And it's interesting because, at least for me, I sort of saw both sides of the coin. I grew up poor, but also went to a fairly posh boarding school, sort of saw both sides of the English class division. And Tommy, one of the things that really struck me in your book was some of the complaints about being displaced from old neighborhoods by immigrants, complaints about certain tensions or ideological tensions in England.
I'm white.
Well,
this other guy is
have no trouble starting wars to
black,
some degree and
and
sending poor
usually
kids off with guns.
usually
when
wins.
Some of the working classes have problems.
Of course, I've never played it before.
Multicultural experiment in England, their concerns get brushed aside. Do you think that some of this has to do, some of the blindness to what's going on has to do with class conflicts or class divisions?
I do, yeah. I do hugely. I hugely feel that. What I feel as well is that as working class people, so a lot of middle class people, would have they have children, they'll go to university, and when they come out of school, they'll study at college, then they'll go to university, and then they'll get a job in another town and city. So they haven't had to stay and watch what's the effects that we've had to watch in our towns and cities. So we had a community. We had a very strong, if I give you an estate in Luton called Farley Hill, a very strong English community that then all of a sudden had these other people put within it who were hostile, who were violent, and we've had to watch the decay of our own town, the decay of our community, attacks on people, rapes on women. And I think that for a lot of people, not even just middle class, but a lot of people who have gone to university, especially politicians, they've gone to university, they've been placed in a boarding school, they've then gone and lived in another town, and they haven't witnessed or been part of that close-knit community. And I say this because when I've done a documentary called Proud and Prejudice, I had a young lad there called Tom Costello, and he got the top grades you could get at Oxford University. He'd had a very different upbringing to me. And when he spent a weekend with me in Luton, when we went to a local pub, he just said, "I've never seen anything like this." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Just the way everyone knows everyone. Everyone here is close with everyone." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I've never witnessed that." So then I started thinking, what sort of life have you had? Right? And then I thought, so the effects that would be affecting us in towns and cities, it really affects us. If something happens to someone we know, but he was very detached from any of that. And yeah, and I think that, and then as well as when we're from our class, or the way I speak, the way I look, the way I dress, is frowned down upon. And if you look at the people from middle class, that's how I feel, not from all middle class, but especially from a lot of the people who run the media, a lot of people who are journalists, they're from a different background to us. A completely different upbringing, completely different way of life, completely different system. So yeah, I feel that a lot of it was a misunderstanding and a way that they look down upon the working class. That's why
there is something that's interesting to me when I was reading your book and thinking about the stuff that you and others have said, Tommy. There's something really fascinating to me, which is that people who say more immigration from third world countries, more migrants, and like welcome refugees and so on, are precisely the people who aren't living in these neighborhoods. And it struck me almost like it's a way of broadcasting your own wealth, your own privilege, your own isolation from the effects of the policies that you are kind of foisting on other people who don't have your kind of options.
Yeah, and they have no idea. And it's like my mum was moving house, and in between moving house, she moved to this place it's only probably 10 or 15 miles outside of Luton, but there's not a single. It's just completely English, completely white, the whole place. And when I was going to visit her, and then I was sitting, because I've never grown up anywhere like that. So then I was thinking, I thought, I bet these people who live here, when I'm standing at local shops, so they haven't got no idea. They've got absolutely no idea what it's like 15 miles up, what it's like where we've grown up. They've got no idea. So then I have this. So when people are coming out, and you're right, all the people calling for these measures, calling for this immigration, it doesn't affect them. They don't have to live with it. It's like I look at all the celebrities, whether it be Lily Allen, Gary Lineker. Look where Lily Allen lives when she lived in the Cotswolds. Look where Gary Lineker lives. They live in a completely dominated white English communities, Christian communities, completely. But yet they're stressing that everyone else needs to welcome in these refugees. Well, when they bring those refugees in, where are they going to live? They're going to live with us. They're going to live next to us. They're going to live in the poor areas. It's going to affect us. It's not going to affect them. They don't have the same problems on waiting lists for doctors because they have private healthcare, many of them. They don't have the same problems with getting your children to schools because they're just paid. So, and whereas many people, I know even in a little area, there's a new school built and there's 12 children in the who are in that one estate who can't even get into school. There's not enough school places. There's not enough school places because of the huge demographical change that's happening because of the birth rate within the Islamic communities. And that's what generally, they're not having to see it, they don't see any of this, which is what the main thing we're trying to bring to people's eyes now, to let them see it. This is what it's like here. This is what's happening here, these are the problems we're facing. But yeah, I think that, and some of them I'd say are well-intentioned. Some of these people are well-intentioned, I'd say. I try to understand as well, another example. So I can't understand, you see with general Nazism and racism, for me, because I've been brought up in Luton, I find it hard to understand, yeah? But then when I met lads from Newcastle, there's no immigration in the areas they live, and they're looking at the problems that are happening, and they haven't experienced it. Same with when I went to France. When I went to France, I spent time with groups in France. Every bit of immigration they've had into their country is Islamic. So they haven't had loads of black Christian immigration. It's all Islamic. So they push the problem basically on race. They say that. So yeah, it's trying to understand different people's perspectives on all the issues. Yeah.
And there is a funny thing as well. When I was studying, it's a really boring bit of history, but I found it quite fascinating. Back in the Middle Ages, you could have a food excess in one town, and then 15 miles away, people could be starving to death because they just had bad harvests or bad crops or whatever. Because there was just, the roads weren't there was just no way of transferring things. And this kind of isolation seems to me to be happening as well throughout the West, and I've really noticed it in your book and the other things that you talked about, which is you do have these isolated people, because it should be the media that is broadcasting the challenges between these different groups so that people aren't living in these ivory towered isolation where they can basically just read whatever agrees with them and think that everything's fine, where other people are battling really challenging problems and no one's broadcasting it. There aren't roads to even these things out. The media seems to be doing as much work to isolate the powers that be from the problems that the rank and file are facing.
And when you do try and scream about those problems and draw attention to those problems, you're called a fascist racist. So you're called a bigot and you're attacked at every level. And even just like, I don't know if you see that white working class children are now the biggest underachievers in education. White working class in the UK. They're the biggest underachievers. Not the black community, not the Indian community, not the Muslim community. White working class are the biggest underachievers in our education system. And that comes from the fact that they're working class, they've been neglected, they've been abandoned, their sense of identity and who they are in their history is gone. Most kids now that are from a working class background in dominated towns that are mainly Labour controlled with large Muslim communities have completely been pushed aside. Completely. The funding, I remember when the English Defence League started and the Luton Borough Council called me for a meeting, and I went to a meeting with them, and they had a baroness there from the Labour government, a black lady. They had a baroness, they had councillors, they had all these different people there, a row of about 10 people. They said, do you mind if we set this up and record it? So they set a camera up and they said, tell us what's wrong. Yeah? So I said, okay, where are you from? What's your background? And I went through each one of them. One of them was from Hitchin. Hitchin's a lovely middle class town. I went through the other lady, what school did you go to? Middle class, middle class, middle class. Well, all of their backgrounds. And there was one Muslim in the room who was a councillor. And I said, you're from Berry Park, aren't you? Which is the Muslim community in Luton. I said, yeah. You're just a normal working background, yeah? I said, yeah. I said, well, the problem here is that you 8 people, you do not represent me, and you do not represent us. And he represents the Muslim community, because he does, yeah? Because he understands them, he's grown up with them. I said, none of you are from a background, none of you get what I'm saying. I said, then, if we go up to Farley Hill, which is the white council estate, there's a park here, and it's from the 1970s. And it's got 2 swings. If you go down the hill...
I'm going to resign because I meant to move a certain way, but the thing slipped and I lost, and there's no way I'm going to be winning this thing, so I'll be starting a new game here. But I'll continue with the Tommy Robinson.
into the Muslim community, there's a £350,000 state-of-the-art park that you've built for them. I said, and if we go into the Muslim communities, into the centres that they have, the community centres, then it's all free. Yeah, it's all free. If we go up to the council estate where the white kids are, or the black kids, and we want to play football,
I'll try it again with this guy.
Yeah? So you're overfunding, and this is what's happened, full 360. You've aimed everything, all of your resources, all of your campaigning, everything is aimed at the Muslim community. Luton played a huge football match. Luton is obviously the town I'm born in, it's the football club I support. Luton had a big, massive football match. The biggest game for years in Luton, it was at Wembley Stadium. And all the tickets were sold out. And I mean, everyone wanted to go to that game. Now, I remember standing outside Luton Town Centre, I standing outside Wembley Stadium, and I watched as 10 coaches come up, one by one. And as they got off, it was just Muslim children. Like hundreds of Muslim children get up. And I was thinking, what that's about? Yeah? So when I got with the council, I said, what is that? What was that? That's us trying to integrate them into the community. I said, and you've done the complete opposite. Because what you did, and I can tell you because I was there, so how angry everyone was watching those coaches pull up. And West Ham Football Club have done the same. So, and other teams have done the same. They give out free tickets to all the Muslim community to come to football to try and involve them. Now those 10 coaches should have been filled with black, white, Asian, brown, yellow, every background of children. But you have specifically targeted the Muslim community. You've neglected the poor white kids, the poor black kids. You haven't brought them in on your little campaign of running to try and bring integration. That's not integration, that's segregation. And that is what every policy that they've done. Even the Imam, at the time of me having this conversation, even the Imam said that you've overfunded our community. Yeah? You've overfunded the Muslim community compared to what you've done to us. So you've created this whole thing where white English children, and again, I've given the example in my book where it was St George's Day. When it's St Lucian Day in Luton, there's a massive carnival party. Okay, great, brilliant. I used to go to it every year. When it's St Patrick's Day, we have a 3-day festival through the town for the Irish. When it's Eid, you'll see a rebel video of Eid this year. Yeah? When it's Eid, we have huge, massive fairgrounds, parks, everything, to celebrate Eid. When it's Christmas, we didn't even have Christmas lights last year because they couldn't afford them because of health and safety changes. When it was St George's Day growing up, when it was the English people's chance to celebrate our identity, our history, who we are, it was banned every year. Not just banned every year, but what they did is they gave out letters to the schools saying if the emblem of St George is brought in, and this is all documented, if the emblem of St George is brought into school, you'll be sent home from school. Now this was Icknield High School. This was the same school that actually experienced the same Trojan horse plot as well. Icknield High School sent that out. And when I grew up in Icknield High School, there was a few Muslims. Now it's 90% Muslim. But at this time, 7 years ago, it was probably 50-50. Now I rang the school straight away, and the receptionist told me that when Pakistan won the cricket, they were encouraged to celebrate Pakistani winning the cricket at school. When it was England's Day, you're not allowed to bring the flag. So the message that is being sent out to our community, to our youth, to English kids, is that they should feel dirty for who they are. They should feel ashamed. They can't have pride in their identity, which is why in London there's no Cockney slang anymore. People are speaking Jam African. All of this comes from a sense of, it's why so many convert into Islam, because Islam gives them a strong identity, a strong sense of community. Now, we had that. We had that in Farley Hill. We had that in Luton. You destroyed it. The council destroyed it. You destroyed it with the influx of people you brought in who openly attacked it. And then through your education system and the council government system, you also attacked our identity. You made us feel ashamed of who we are, which is why so many kids are, I feel, the reason why white working class are the biggest underachievers. Because they don't have pride anymore. They don't even know who they are, most of them. You stop them. There was one interview where there was a black kid, an Asian kid and a white kid, and they asked them their history, where are you from? And one of them went, my family's from here, my family's from here, where are you from? And they're all celebrating. When they got to the young English kid, where are you from? So I don't know.
Now, one of the great comparisons that's made with sort of modern Western immigration is sort of the 19th century in America. Now, to me, there's a couple of differences. One is that 19th century in America was mostly European, similar history, similar backgrounds, and so on. And secondly, no welfare state, and everyone was expected to obey the law in the same way. And to me, a country is defined, obviously, by culture and art and history. But in a formal way, a country is defined by the universality of its laws. And one of the things that's hard to avoid Tommy, in your
different
book
in this game.
is that the law is far from being
I've got to
applied
stop it.
equally.
Bye.
And when